uh, why the time right now is correct, and why this particular idea that you think that you want to do is going to be the one that is going to impact a lot of people. Uh, so, for example, when I started off, before Tapney and Sorted, the question that I asked for myself, why I want to do this, is because I thought that I would want to have more control over my time eventually. That may not be the best way of or reason for you to start off to do a startup, but for me that was it was. Uh, I wanted to why I wanted to do a startup was because eventually I would want to be in a position wherein I decide what I want to do with my time, and for me that was a good enough reason to do a startup. Uh, and why to do that startup at that moment, and why the idea are two important questions, because uh, a lot of times when you are doing or you're thinking of an idea, and for that matter most of the ideas are not new, most of the ideas have already been tried before. uh, why the idea that you're thinking of and that has been tried before has not succeeded in the past is going to be one of the core questions that you would understand, helps you understand yourself as well as your own product better, and that also intrinsically also helps you understand why the particular idea that you're interested in. So that's why this question is super important. Always start with why. This particular gentleman is Sam Altman. He's one of the co-founders of Y Combinator. Y Combinator is one of the leading schools that help people, make their startups better. Uh, uh, they are accelerator program based out of Silicon Valley, US. Uh, for him, one of the most important uh, things that he thinks that a startup should be doing is make something people want. In fact, he goes on to say that everything else you can go wrong with, but if you go wrong with this particular thing, wherein you are making something that people don't want to use, or people something that people don't want, your startup is going to fail. So his idea is that you should always make something that people want. There should be an inherent demand for it. People should be making your life crazy, and that also eventually goes on and defines what your product market fit is. Product market fit. So, for example, in our case, when we launched Kaga Scanner, between that and the Chinese app ban, our usage was minimal, and we never really got anyone to be using that. Once the Chinese app ban happened, and there was a huge surge in people using it. So one day, our number of downloads was 1,000. The next day it was 1 lakh 1,000. One night we got 1 lakh, more than 1 lakh downloads, and there were a lot of things that were breaking in the app. Uh, but that's one, observation that we realized that right now what we are building with Kaga Scanner is something that people want, and they want to use the app. They want to use an app which is Indian, which doesn't come with the baggage of being a foreign app trying to steal your data, and you know that's how we got our understanding of what product market fit looks like. So this is something that I would suggest anyone going for a startup is to always, you know, go ahead and make something that people want. Uh, Third learning has been ideas are commodity, execution of them is not. Uh, Interestingly, there is another quote around this which says that uh, ideas are using a chess analogy. Ideas are pawns and execution is the king. Uh, and that's how it is, because in terms of uh, you know ideas, the ideas are available across, and as has been said by the Greek philosophers, there is no unique idea in the world. All ideas that you think right now have been thought of in some form or the other uh, in the past. Some of them have been tried and have not been successful, because had they been successful, you would have known. Uh, Google was not the first search engine. There were search engines before that. Why Google succeeded was because of the execution that it got. There was a time when Yahoo and Google Yahoo was in talks of acquiring Google, but the execution of Google was such that eventually Google was not bought, and Google now is at least 10 times the size of what Yahoo was. So the idea that you come up with, uh, although it may be as brilliant as anything else in the world, but at the same time, unless you work on it and unless the execution of it is, uh, you know, superior than what others have done in the past, your startup would not be as successful as you would want it to be. So, uh, and that's where most of the startup journeys go as well, go haywire as well. A lot of startups come up with brilliant ideas of how they should be doing it, but the execution sucks, and I think that's where most of the most of the success or failure of a startup is defined. That is in the execution of things. And also, I think this really doesn't need much more explanation. But to win, you have to stay in the game. What that means is that there are a lot of times when even I've when in fact anyone who's been doing a startup would be lying that they would not want to quit the startup, because it is such a huge pressure cooker to be working inside. There's so much of pressure on you every day, day in, day out. Your co-founders are, getting into your personal lives. Your clients are, messaging you at 2 o'clock at night that this is something that is not working. Uh, but at the end of the day, the that's where the why comes in. You keep thinking of why your personal why is, and you stay into the game. And you know, as I had stated in the first part of the presentation, uh, my journey that I stated, I did my engineering, then I quit for some time to try for civil service. So my journey has also been similarly, right? There is no straight line. Most of the journeys are, just valleys and peaks. Peaks are not that many, but there are more valleys and peaks, and to keep on going is how most of the winning is done, just to by keep going and staying in the game. For those of you who are thinking about entrepreneurship, there are a lot of questions that keep coming up. Uh, First most important question that most of the students that I've spoken to have come up with is how to come up with an idea. I think the this question gets resolved by if you think if the if the problem or the idea that you come up with is a personal problem in itself. Uh, if you can't think of a problem which is a personal problem which is also required by a lot of other people, then think of a problem which the community that you are a part of has. If that isn't you can't come up with a problem there, then think of a problem for a group of people. The best problems are those which are a personal problem for yourself, because you know and understand and think about it deeply. And being a personal problem, you would want to work and solve around it. Also, at the same time, you would have to think if the problem is big enough for other people to be using it, and that's where Sam Altman's quote also comes in. Make something that people want. How to find your co-founders? Uh, so ideally, the best way to find your co-founders is if you work with someone. Uh, so there are two or three things that I've realized. One is that if you should have had a working relationship with that person, because friends and relationships are different things. But having worked with someone in a team uh, helps you understand their work ethics much better, and that's how I think I would want to personally choose co-founders. Uh, so for us also, we worked together as a team only. We did not know each other beforehand. Snehanshu and Gaurav knew each other, but I joined in as the first employee through a reference, and we started working together. We enjoyed working together, and that's how eventually we decided to become co-founders. The second most important thing that I realized is that as in is in our case is that all three of us come from different backgrounds. I look after tech, Gaurav looks after marketing, and Snehanshu looks after product. Uh, Being from different this thing our work areas are very well defined. If you are able to have co-founders who come from different backgrounds, who would want to take up different jobs in the startup itself, there is nothing like it, because then there are going to be uh, areas which are going to be your specializations, and how things are, how your team is going to be, is how you're going to be defining it. Although the overall direction of the startup is something that all the co-founders have to think themselves, as well as the early team members, but that is another way of how you would want to look for your co-founder. uh, Third question that generally comes across is how to raise investments and prepare for a plan B. In terms of investment, you'll have to, one, if you have most of the things correct, already sorted out. So for example, if you're trying to make something that people want, and eventually you can make a business plan or a business out of it, raising funds would not be that difficult. There Also, for that, you'll also have to understand how venture capitalists think. So venture capital, raising money from a venture capital fund, is kind of different from how traditional businesses kind of raise money. So those who have seen how traditional businesses work, they generally have a small group of people who lend each other, or they take more financial, more institutional lending from banks and all. Uh, Startup investments don't work like that. They are kind of investments wherein the VC funds, they understand that your product right now is being used by a lot of people. Uh, so there is a product market fit. This business, because of how it has grown steeply over the last few days, they'll like to see a hockey stick curve in terms of how your growth has, since it's grown so very well with limited amount of this thing and organically. Uh, that means that there is an inherent demand to it, and because of that, more and more people would want to use it eventually as they're more exposed to it. And once they're exposed to it, and they had hooked on to the product, to the product, they would want to pay for it. So they put in money to your company and take some of the share of your company, uh, and you use that capital to grow your this thing, to your startup, to a new level. Raising investment works for startups wherein you can have very high growth in a very short duration of time. Uh, and that's what most of the investment firms also look at. Uh, so you'll have to understand and read more about how VCs think, and uh, why not your startup should take up external funding. A lot of times, for traditional businesses, they don't even require external funding. So, for example, if you're running a small restaurant, you don't require external funding, or yeah, in fact, a VC would not be interested. It's a fairly profit. It's a fair enough way of making profitable business. But it's not something that VCs are interested in, because VCs are interested only in businesses that grow up very fast, because more the number of people who use your business, and the faster it would grow, and the faster it would grow, higher its value would be for the future. Uh, because the money that they've taken from their own, investors, that money they would want to put in startups that would eventually grow, give them 10x returns in the next 10 years. Uh, and preparing a plan B, and that is something that is becoming important now also for most of the startups who are in India, is because uh, as you grow ahead, or as your startup grows ahead, you realize that just depending on external funding is not something that everybody enjoys. Having a business that can be profitable sooner, or having customers who are going to be paid sooner, uh, is a legitimate way of actually making a business, and that's how most of the SaaS businesses in this country are growing now. Uh, Also, till the time you bootstrap, there is no harm in doing something which is kind of not full time. Uh, and someone who goes ahead and tells you that you should always you, you can only do your startup full time, although they're correct in some sense, because your seriousness was only defined only then. But if there is a genuine reason wherein you have to support a family, also would want to do also want to wish to do a startup, it's a legitimate way of doing it in your own time. It's going to be slow, but uh, I mean, everybody's path is different, right? You can't really go ahead and define that this worked for me and this would not work for you. Financial stability is an issue, but it's going to be an issue only for a small period of time. Why I say that uh, is that because me, Snehanshu and Gaurav, we were not working for a salary for almost 2 years before Kagas happened, and uh, I mean, unless you are have a lot of obligations, uh, and unless you have some loan over you, I've always felt that financially, uh, you know earning 30 to 40,000 is enough for someone to run a home in this country. Uh, so financial stability becomes a problem only when you think it's a problem. Uh, if you have enough support coming in from your family. So in fact, there was a time when so I'm married. There was a time when almost 2 years it was only my wife's salary that was running my home. So I mean, that's how it is, and that's how most founders are. If you talk to most founders, you would realize that they are kind of very जुगाड़ू. ये पैसा कहीं से भी आ जाएगा, बस हम घर चला लेंगे एक बार ये स्टार्टअप करके बड़ी हो जाएगी, then we will see what to be done. So financial stability more about there in your head. Uh, Although if you think that money is something that is very very important and very crucial for you, don't go ahead and do a startup of your own. Join a startup which is early stage. Take up some equity and take up and work for a salary also. That's legitimate way of being part of the startup as well. You don't have to go ahead and found your startup yourself. What if I don't like it and just want to do a job? I think the answer is right there, right? If you don't like it, you go ahead and just do your job. I mean, there are no two ways about it. If as long as and I do say it to everyone, startups and everything are fun only if you're enjoying it. If you think of it as a task or of it as an obligation or a duty, it's not something that you're going to be enjoying it a lot. Uh, and finally, there is no right or wrong. uh, Not really. There is just that thing that you do. Enjoy life, I guess, and think of everything that you're doing as just being chapters of your life. There is no final chapter unless you get there, and yeah, keep enjoying it. Thank you. This is how I can be contacted. Uh, yeah, ready to take questions now.
So, sir, can I start with my couple of questions?
Sure.
So, I have a big doubt at this point, like how to choose the technology to like develop an MVP. There are so many things. and each have their pros and cons. So how can I find a fit for my product?
There is a quote that comes from one of the founders of Y Combinator. He says that do things that don't scale. Tech should be your last worry. What the technology you should be using should be your last worry. They always say that make something and ship it as fast as possible and take it to your customers. If you don't have customers who are willing to use or use your solution or your product, there is going to be nothing around tech that you would want, right? So just ship it out as soon as possible. Use your strengths, whatever tech that use that. Whatever language that use that. Make a जुगाड़ू crappy kind of a product कैसे भी चल रहा है. In fact, I keep telling people use Excel. Don't use databases. Excel. Put data manually. Take it out to the customers. Find out the problem, whether the solution is going to be working for them or not, and then work on it. Tech will happen eventually, and your tech would keep growing again and again because there is a saying that every million is a different story. Every time you reach X number of users, your current tech would not work. You'll have to scale up your tech accordingly. So don't think about what tech you're going to be using. Just go ahead and make a simple Jugadu product and take it out
So
as soon
that's
as
a
possible.
relief now, a big relief now. I was like thinking, what are the things like? How can what are the things we have to use? Like it fits scales and things. I have to learn this and this.
That's a good problem to
Later,
have, but it's a problem that will come in later. It's not a problem that's going to be should be a first problem. Your first problem should be something that, something that you make should be used by people. If you can't get there, no amount of tech would help you.
okay. Like, and one more thing, like here in the college, I have seen, like, I am all for startup for myself, but in the college, I have seen the students, like, they have an idea, they want to do the startup, like, but they are, it's some kind of turmoil that the college placement stats are very good here. So they
Right.
are like, if I don't sit for the like placements and if I don't go for that, am I losing something? And working on my startup, they're like they're in some kind of turmoil. Having a good idea in a college, we provide incubation also, which comes with a good amount of funding as of for an early stage startup. But how can they deal with this thing?
Taking risk or risk appetite is your own personal journey. I mean, you can't. Nobody can help you out. But what have helped me is I have read. I've read about the lives of how people have you know gone through their lives and their journeys, and most interesting life for me has been the ones which have been very unstable and non-stable kind of lives, and they're the most interesting ones because they kind of live life more than just living a life. In terms of whether you're missing out on your this thing and all, there's nobody stopping you from getting a job interview, right? And getting placed. If and I've said that multiple times to other people also. Having a salary and earning a living through a salary is a decent way of living life. But if you feel that you have this as a kida in your head that you want to do something that's going to make a difference for a lot of people in their lives, and something that you would want to achieve that everybody would remember you for eventually, uh, then doing a startup is something that I feel is one of the best ways of doing that, for somebody, for history to remember you one way or the other.
Hope that helps some of the people here, those who are thinking and about both the things, doing both the things at the same time. So like anyone else, if you have any question, you can unmute and ask. So there's the question in
There's
chat.
the
How
question
does
in chat.
Kagaz
How
earns
does
money?
Sagar earn money? What's the
Uh,
business model of Kaga scanner?
So in terms of earning money, we're currently experimenting with how to do that. So as I told you earlier, we've introduced cloud storage. So we have started now getting people whose cloud storage has come up to the free level. So we provide 250 MB free. So now we have users coming in, tell us that they want more extra cloud storage, and that's where our monetization has started. uh, Small number of users right now, but that's what we plan to scale in terms of getting more users in cloud and getting that for this thing. Eventually, it's going to be more of a premium model, wherein there would be some tools which are going to be free always, but there are going to be tools which are going to be premium only within Kagas, and that's how it's going to be. So scanning, PDF reader, all of that going to remain free, but a lot of PDF tools and extra cloud storage and things around accessing documents over cloud. These are things that we feel people are going to be willing to pay for small price, not the amount of price that Google pays asks for. So our current this thing is 99 rupees for a year for a GB. That's the kind of pricing that we are offering for cloud storage for document that we feel that is enough. uh, so yeah, hope that answers your question.
Anyone else? You can unmute and ask.
So, like we participate in hackathons and we build some solutions. These are non-scalable products, means we build in very raw stage and very quickly. So, how can we analyze that this idea can solve a big problem and we can scale it? And how to scale that idea? Like we make that in very raw stage.
So the framework that we use or I use for myself is when you have an idea, and this is not for your hackathon itself, it's just more of a general how I've used this thing. When you have an idea and you make a small MVP of it, you take it to the customers and try to understand how the customers are going to be using your product. The more they use it, the more feedback that you get. At least in the early stages, that helps a lot. Talking to your customers and talking to the end user, uh, that's one of the key ways of getting your product market fit. And uh, so a lot of times, so even in Kagas, most of the feedback that we got, we had to dig out a lot of lot of reasoning from data also. So, for example, we realized that a lot of people, when they came into the app, around 70% of the people who scanned a document shared a document. 30% did not even share the document after scanning. So when we dug deeper and we spoke to our customers, we realized that for them after scanning, they keep it and store it within Kagas to access it later, and that is why for if you would see how products are, if you remember how Cam Scanner was, Cam Scanner also has a list of documents on its homepage itself, while Adobe Scan, when you open up, it opens up into a camera because there they believe that person is coming in to scan. But Bharat user, Indian user is different. They scan a document to store it within the app and access it later, and that's how our file system evolved, and from there we evolved it into cloud because people would want to store it for a longer duration of time. So uh, reason why I gave you the small example is because more you talk to your users, more you think about it, you will realize that this particular solution has this kind of a usage and whether it's going to be used or not. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir.
There are few more questions that we got. Like, once you got the idea, what should be the next step? Like, directly go ahead into building or do some research, and how much time do we have to take to do the research and all these things.
So both of them work hand in hand. Once you've got an idea, think more deeply about the idea. Why is it that you would? Why is that idea would be used? Right? Talk to people around you. So there is a difference in between when you talk to a person versus when you make that person use your product. So when you'll have to do both. First, you'll have to talk to them whether this particular idea that you're thinking of makes sense to them. uh, a lot of times you would get that, "Nay, this is not going to make sense and this is a crappy product, it's not going to work," and things like that. But you have a notion or you have a feeling that this may work. And some of the customers that you've spoken to also have given you similar feedback, because a lot of times when people eventually go ahead and use the product, that time the reaction is different versus when they think about it. Because frankly, although customers are the ones who are going to be giving you your best ideas, but they don't know what needs to be built for them. They understand that it's a problem, there is a problem, but what is the solution that would work for them, they do not understand unless it is in their hands. So talk to them and think of your problem deeply. uh, uh, do your research whether something like this has been done in the past or not. And if it has been done in the past, why has it failed, or why was it not successful then? And then make a basic product and take it out to your customers, and then get more feedback.
So, like, for my product, I got the weirdest responses. I think they said like it's something to change the culture of the in the wedding, something related to that. So people are like, I would use it because my thinking is modern, but rest of the people of India will not use it. Most of the people were like, I can use it because I am modern. I can use technology, but rest of the India will not use your product. So like, it was very weird to get that response.
Yeah, and it would be even more different when they eventually use your product. The response is going to be much more different, because when you bring out your product, it could be complex. You'll eventually have to work your way to simplicity, and that's how the journey is going to be.
Yeah, like that's why I am doing MVP of an MVP right now to understand them what they actually want. Then only I can build something for them. So like there are cases that customers are really difficult to understand.
They are, and that's the most interesting thing, because you get most of your answers from them itself, but you have to talk to more and more customers and have longer conversations with them to get to understand what is it that they mean, because they
Yeah, like
themselves don't know what.
dig the things out of them, like go
Yes,
into their
yes,
mind and bring the things out of it.
yes, yes, exactly.
Like there is a question: is it worth to leave a job for a startup that you are going to start?
It is, if you believe, and in fact, that's one of the signs that VCs look at also, whether how much involved are you with your startup. If you quit your job, high-paying job, put in your own money into your own startup, more involved you are in your own startup, better the chances are that you would get funded eventually, because that's how things are, right? Unless you yourself believe in your idea, nobody else would. So that's more the reason why you should be doing that. But at the same time, if you think uh, there is going to be a financial strain, and you're going to quit, because most people quit very early. That's the biggest problem. So people quit their jobs, do it for a couple of months, and they think that this is too tough for me. Let me get back to job, and that's fine. I mean, but startups don't happen in 2 months. They take. I mean, some startups do get funded in 2 months itself, but a lot of them take a whole 2 to 4 years to actually get to the first round of institutional funding also. So it's a long journey, and you have to be prepared for it. And that's why having a co-founder helps, because um, They just sick little inner joke that most of the co-founders are more close to you than your spouses, because you spend more time with them than with your own spouse and your own child. Uh, and co-founders help because they go through your journey with you. They go through the similar kind of uh, you know uh, mental turmoil, and discussing and talking with them helps a lot. So having a co-founder helps that way. Single founders have it even tougher.
So can you share something upon like marketing? When should we start doing it? After the production, during the production, or like from the beginning itself? We should have something in mind for the marketing and
So
branding.
if you have access to customers who can use your product straight away, there is no requirement of marketing. If you don't have that, then you would require to you know. So for example, if it's just an app that can be used by any student in the country, right? If you have access to students near you, please go ahead and ask them to use it. But if you don't have, if you're passed out of college and you don't have access to students, right? uh, Run a small marketing Google download campaign, get some downloads, and then see how people are using it. So use marketing, but use it frugally and use it uh, to a minimum extent, so that you know what who is using your product, why is it that using your product, and whether it is something that is making difference to them. Because spending a lot of money initially on marketing would not help if you don't have product market fit.
Like if anyone has anything to ask, you can also ask. Just unmute your mic and you can ask. So some of the questions are here in the chat. You can look anything like which is not being answered or some interesting question if you can find.
So there's one interesting question from Manan. Don't you think Bharat users will decline over time because the generations coming up are using smartphones at the age of 5? That is true, and in fact, the people who are using smartphones at the age of 5, Kunal Shah calls them the CTO of their houses. They are the ones who are the most, hands-on about technology. They teach their parents how to use smartphones, and if you are able to uh, use them, and in fact, also for us, they've been one of the best testers. Also, they really break your app very well, and they let you know what the problem with your apps are. Uh, Bharat user, the definition of Bharat user doesn't change for us, because Bharat users are mobile only users for us, and we believe that that's how it's going to be for a lot of people in the country also. They are going to be mobile only users, never using a desktop or laptop, and for them to be using mobile phones for things other than just entertainment is how we look at it. So Bharat users are here to stay, and they're going to be taking over the world. Uh, okay. Okay, so the next question is from Suraj, which says, which part one should focus more, adding more functionalities within a product, or clean UI UX with limited functionalities? It's Adding more functionalities would help only if you have product market fit. If you don't have product market fit, getting your UI and UX right, in fact, more on UX right, is more important. First, most important thing is having people to use your product. Then the next, if you started having some people who started using your product on a daily basis, then next is going to be about more and more people trying to use it. So that's going to be more around adoption. So for adoption, you will improve your user experience and your UI, because there would be some people who will be coming and not understanding the product and getting off. Since you have some people who are already using your product, it is something that is useful. That is why they're using it, and that is where you would work on your UX to improve, so that more people who come into the app also use it more, and your adoption increases, so that your overall usage increases. And once they've done that, and you've kind of reached a level wherein you think that people are asking for more and more functionality now, that keeps getting added on eventually throughout your journey. So that may be it may not be a serial path. Adding more functionality could be going on parallel as well, because there will be some users who have been using a product for some time. They would want certain functionalities that needs to be added into your product. Hope that answers your question. So like Saurabh's question is like many products reach a certain audience and then the growth saturates. So that's how you define your market, right? So there's a terminology in startup world which is called TAM, SAM, SOM. So TAM is your tangible area, or target area market. SAM is your sizable area market, and SOM is your sizable operational market. What that means is that if you're, so for example, you're making a product which is going to be used by college students, that is, so your TAM is your entire country, colleges for your entire country, that's your TAM. SAM is your geographically where you can access. So for example, you're from Allahabad, all these colleges in Allahabad will be a SAM, and SOM is where you're operational right now. So if you're operational at triple IT, then your SOM is triple IT. So you make a product that is going to be used by a certain number of people first, and then you find similar people and increase your market. So TAM, SAM, SOM, that is something that you should be reading more about, and that would help you understand uh, why saturation works or not. I think I've answered Naman's question already. Uh, this is Saurabh and Naman. I think I've already answered your question. So Kaga scanner really started working before Kaga. So uh, I, we had two intents with Kagas. One was, as I told you, for sorted we needed a document, more quality on the more control over the quality of images, and that was one of the reasons why we developed Kagas, because Kagas, the quality of image that was coming in for machine to read it better, was why we needed Kagas. But at the same time, there was a tension going on at the border. We developed it before the cam scanner ban happened, but we felt that people are now or right now asking for an Indian alternative for it. So we had started. Uh, we did have that idea at the back of our mind. Frankly, we never thought that it's going to be banned. Uh, that it's going to be such a bold step taken by the government that's going to be banned. Is allowing advertisements on our app a good way of generating cash or not? Depends upon your or on your app. So for example, someone like a YouTube, it makes complete sense because you're going there for entertainment, and if you're not a paid user, it makes complete sense. For someone like us, for a productivity tool, although cam scanner everyone did show ads, we believe showing ads is not right, because someone who's going for scanning a particular document within Kagas, showing them an ad before they can scan a document is like uh, asking them कि भाई रुक जाओ, आप काम बाद में कर लेना, पहले ad देख लो. That is that we believe is going to be hampering their productivity more than we are trying to make the life simpler by giving them tools that they can use from their mobile phone. By showing them ads, we are only going to complicate it more. So we believe showing ads is not the best way of earning money for targets at least. I think most of the questions above are done. One more question from you guys. Depends, Dheeraj. A lot of times you understand your market more. So we believe that. So Neeraj's question is how to scale up the product, beating the established giants in the field from scratch. Like in case of Kagar, it may be somewhat difficult to rise that exponentially if there is no Chinese app ban. It depends. Uh, so if you are able to solve a problem which is different in a different way, it would be different. So for example, Google was not the first search engine, and there was already a couple of search engines in the market which were doing better than Google. Google solved the problem in a different way. It brought its page rank algorithm, which kind of beat everyone else hands down. So if you're able to think of a problem in a different way, and your solution is something that is much more impactful, you can take up and compete with the giants in the market. Uh, Saurav's question is, uh, Saurav, question: in the world of social media marketing, where companies like Zomato, Cred are taking over the creative world, how much importance you think of social media in the market development? Social media is one of the most important ways, and it would remain that way. So the problem with social media is that everybody is trying to fight for your time. Every app in your phone is trying to fight for your time, right? So whether it's an Instagram or whether it's a Twitter, both of them are fighting for your time where you would want to spend more time on. Uh, and I think that's the problem with social media marketing also. Within a social within Instagram also, you'll have to be always creative to be able to be there for people to go ahead and spend their time with you, uh, or on your product page. And I think that's the biggest drawback of social media marketing. But I mean, it's something that is not going to go away anytime soon. And people are coming up with more and more innovative ways of social media marketing. I think I'm done with most of the questions. Give a couple of more minutes for more questions. Otherwise, I think we should wrap it up.
We all learned a lot today. Like many of our questions are solved, and one of my biggest headache is also resolved now.
Good luck with your stuff.
Thank you. So, sir, can I like discuss it sometime with you with my idea and get your feedbacks? And
Sure, no
if you
issues.
are free
You can
sometime,
you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, or my email ID. I'll just put it here in the chat box. Uh, this is my email ID, and this is my Twitter handle, and this is my LinkedIn handle. In case any of these ways work for me for reaching out to me, if I may reply in a I may be late in replying, but I'll definitely reply.
thank you, sir. So, like, if we don't have any other questions, we can wrap up now. I, I think that was all for today. Thank you so much, sir, for coming and helping us out.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you very much.